Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So in this tutorial video, we will talk about Spring IOC Container and what exactly is IOC Container. So IOC stands for Inversion of Control. So you have heard about IOC and you must have seen about lot of videos on YouTube and internet. So I'll keep it simple and straight. Like what's the purpose of IOC? Why do we use the IOC? And what's this IOC container like thing in Spring? Okay, so let's start. So basically earlier what we are doing in core Java or advanced Java projects is we used to create our objects using new keyword or reflection, or there are other ways also, like cloning also. So in this Spring, basically we don't have to create objects using new keyword. So that has been taken care by IOC container. So IOC container is a part of Spring that Spring has provided to us. Just like there are some features of core Java, oops concept provided by core Java. So Spring IOC container has been provided by Spring. So talking about IOC container, it's a part, or I can say it's the core of Spring framework. Basically it creates the objects for us, configures them, and assembles their dependency in a container. Okay, so that container basically manages all those component and makes us the application, and it can get those information about the objects from the configuration file xml if we are using xml ways, or if we are using annotations way, then it can get from annotation from Java Pojo class or DTO or VOs, or if we are using config, then it can get from Java code. So basically these objects what we are going to create in Spring, these are called as beans or Java beans. Since the controlling of Java objects and all their life cycle is not done by developers here, it has been managed and done by Spring itself. So Spring IOC container manages the life cycle of those beans and manages all those things. So hence the name inversion of control. So basically Spring IOC container, if we can see in this small diagram, we have our business objects, we have our pojos there. So we pass on our pojos and business objects to the Spring container through configuration metadata file. That can be spring.xml or applicationcontext.xml. In xml we define our beans, we configure those objects, and we pass on those to Spring container. Or if we are doing in pojos and annotations way in DTO and VOs, so we pass those to the Spring container, IOC container, and the IOC container then provides us the fully configured system ready to use. Okay, so IOC, if I say a simple explanation, is IOC is when you have someone else create objects for you. So in this diagram you can see I'm just only passing my business objects pojos, or I'm just configuring them in metadata file. I'm not creating any object with new keyword. Okay, so IOC is basically when you have someone else create objects for you. So instead of writing new my object in your code, the object is created by someone else. This someone else is normally referred to as an IOC container. So inversion of control means giving control of creating and instantiating the Spring beans to the Spring IOC container, and the only work we as a developer do is configuring the beans in spring.xml file. Okay, so Spring provides basically two types of container. Uh, they are bean factory container and application context. Okay, so these are the two types of container that Spring basically provide, and these container that Spring provides comes inside the package org spring framework.beans and org spring framework.context packages. Okay, I'll be showing that packages in the code also. So the two containers that Spring provide, bean factory and application context, looks like this. So bean factory is basically an interface, a root level interface, and application context implements that bean factory, and application context itself is a interface, and these three classes we basically use in our project. So the first one is class path XML application context. So most of the time we are going to use this class path application context if we are going to work up with the XML based configuration. Suppose we are doing in spring.xml, then we are going to use these XML type configuration. And if we are going to do inside any resources folder, if we are putting up our XML in XML file there, so we will be using file system XML application context. And if we are using the annotation based, then we are going to use the annotation config application context. So let's move towards the code, and then we will see like what exactly and how these bean factory and application context does the job. So basically these two are the Spring IOC container that do the job, and you can say it's kind of a container that simply does the job. We don't have to create any object. So these all are responsible to instantiate and configure, assemble the objects, gets information from XML configs and works accordingly. So main tasks performed by these containers are instantiate the application class or main class, configure the object, and assemble the dependency between the objects. Okay, so this bean factory interface provides us an configuration mechanism capable of managing those objects, and application context interface build on top of that bean factory. So most of the time we are going to use application context, and this has been a most popular interview question also, like what's the difference between bean factory and application context, and why do we prefer to use application context? So I would say the difference between the two is application provide context provides support for internationalization, and it provides a generic way to load files, whereas bean factory don't provide us some of those features. Okay, so let's move towards the code and let's see. So I have opened my Spring project and I have created just a demo project here. So I have created XML files here in which I have created beans. So later on in upcoming videos I'll be showing you how to create XML context XML files and how to configure those beans in there. The main point I'm showing you in my project is so I'm using application context here, and I'm not going to create a directly project of application context here because it's an interface, and we are going to just create an instance of this kind of upcasting this, and we are going to create a object of class path XML application context, and this application context will read the resource spring.xml file, and from this file it will read all those beans. Okay, so this application context we can see is an interface. It has several other methods defined up here, and it's internally implementing that bean factory interface. So we can see these two containers we are going to mostly use in our project, and these two containers help us in creating the projects, instantiating them, and doing the job for us. Okay, so how to implement IOC? We can implement IOC using basically a factory pattern or service locator pattern and dependency injection. So we are going to use the dependency injection pattern. So in next video we will talk about what is dependency injection and how we are going to use in Spring project. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you.